The human fleet drifted in silence, their sensors overwhelmed by the eerie sight before them. The object on their scanners was enormous, bigger than any ship they had ever encountered. It hung in space like a dark monument, its hull bathed in the dim light of distant stars. No one spoke at first, their voices choked by the sheer immensity of the unknown. The ship had no visible markings, no clear signs of origin, and yet it felt alive. It emitted no radio signals, no transmissions. There was only a haunting silence that sent shivers down the spines of the crew members aboard the lead vessel, the U.S. Sovereign. Commander Maria Richards, a seasoned leader with decades of experience, squinted at the ship's strange silhouette through the viewport. She wasn't one to be easily shaken, but there was something unsettling about this discovery. "Prepare to approach," she ordered, her voice steady despite the growing unease in her chest. "Keep your weapons primed. We don't know what we're dealing with yet." The crew obeyed quickly, their motions precise. The ship's strange design, part organic, part mechanical, defied any human logic or known technology. Its surface shimmered with a subtle, almost imperceptible pulse, like the faint rhythm of a heartbeat. As the fleet closed in, the sensors failed to identify any power signature. The ship should have been inert, but it wasn't. It was like a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. "Commander," Lieutenant Joe said from the communications console, his voice tinged with confusion. "I've tried every frequency, every channel. No response. It's as if the ship is deliberately blocking all communications." Richard's brow furrowed. This wasn't just a derelict ship. It was a puzzle, an unnerving one. She waved her hand toward the holographic display, which showed the strange ship's outline in red, with blue markers pinpointing its exact location. "Do we have a visual of its exterior?" she asked. Zhao nodded, inputting commands into his console. The main display shifted, showing a high-resolution scan of the ship's surface. It looked like an abstract mass of shifting, flowing lines and angles, constantly changing shape. There were no windows, no docking ports, no visible entryways. "This thing is a ghost," Richards muttered, her voice almost lost in the static hum of the bridge. "We can't even see how it's built. It's like it's hiding from us." The fleet commander's instincts were on high alert. Something wasn't right. She made a quick decision. "Let's board it," she said sharply. "Prepare an away team. We need to find out what this thing is, and we need to do it now." As the Sovereign's boarding party prepared to leave, the ship's AI activated. The entire crew froze as the holographic display flickered, showing the ship's core systems lighting up. Then, as if in response to the humans' proximity, a deep, resonating hum filled the bridge, vibrating in their bones. "Commander," Zhao said in disbelief, "the ship's systems are coming online." Richards narrowed her eyes as the hum intensified, and the ship seemed to come to life, shifting ever so slightly. The distant stars around it seemed to dim, swallowed by the dark presence of the unknown vessel. "Something's wrong," Richards muttered, her voice tight with realization. "It's not abandoned. It's waiting for us." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The fate of their mission had just changed. There was no turning back now. The away team, led by Commander Richards, made their way to the ship's airlock, their footsteps heavy on the metallic floor of the U.S. Sovereign. Every crew member was on edge, their nerves taut with anticipation. Richards could sense their fear, but she kept her focus, knowing the crew depended on her resolve. The ship's eerie hum still echoed through the hull, sending waves of unease through the team. The airlock of the mysterious vessel was unlike anything they'd seen before. It was perfectly circular, with smooth surfaces that seemed to pulse faintly under their touch. As the door slid open, the team was greeted by an overwhelming cold silence. The interior was vast, with sweeping angular corridors that stretched into darkness. The walls were an odd combination of smooth glass-like material and jagged metallic structures, seamlessly integrated into one another, as if the ship had been grown rather than built. Richards led the team inside, each member gripping their weapons with white-knuckled hands. The air felt thick, almost too still, as if the ship itself were holding its breath. They moved cautiously, scanning their surroundings with every step. There were no signs of life, no bodies, no signs of past inhabitants. It was as if the ship had been abandoned for eons. But then, as they ventured deeper into the ship, they found something unexpected. A massive chamber opened before them, its walls covered in strange symbols. The symbols were carved into the walls, glowing faintly, shifting with a language that no one aboard the Sovereign could decipher. They looked ancient, far older than any human civilization. Lieutenant Zhao, a linguist by training, stepped forward, his hand hovering over the symbols. "I've never seen anything like this before," he muttered. This looks like a mix of languages, but it's not from any known species." Commander Richards approached cautiously, her eyes scanning the symbols for any hint of meaning. As she did, a soft click echoed through the chamber. The walls seemed to move, slowly at first, until a panel slid open, revealing what appeared to be a console. The panel's surface was smooth, covered in more of the strange symbols. This time, though, there was something different, a faint, pulsing light beneath the surface. Without waiting for permission, Zhou stepped forward, his fingers dancing over the symbols. The moment his hand made contact, the light beneath the console flared to life. The hum in the air grew louder, resonating through the chamber. Suddenly, a holographic display flickered to life in the center of the room. The image was of a ship. No, a fleet. But unlike anything humanity had ever seen, it was a vast armada of vessels, each more massive and intricate than the last, gliding through space like a cloud of darkness. And at the center of it all was the ghost ship itself, its design different, more menacing. It wasn't a relic. It was a weapon. Richards and her team watched in awe as the holographic fleet shifted, revealing the terrifying truth. The ships weren't designed for exploration. They were designed for war, an ancient war that had once ravaged the stars. "This ship," Richards murmured, her voice low. "It wasn't built by any race we know. It was built to fight." The ship's eye, which had remained silent until now, suddenly spoke, its voice low and distant, reverberating through the room like a whispered command. "I was forged for war, to protect those who are worthy." The crew froze. The ship had recognized them, and its words were clear. Humanity was the heir to a forgotten power, but the price of that power would be steep. The voice of the ghost ship echoed in the chamber, deep and resonant, vibrating the air with an unnerving certainty. "I was forged for war, to protect those who are worthy." The words hung in the air, each syllable etched with ancient authority. Commander Richards took a sharp breath, her mind racing to process what had just been revealed. "We need to get back to the Sovereign," she said quickly, her voice steady despite the overwhelming weight of the ship's revelation. "Everyone, stay alert." The away team retreated slowly from the central chamber, the mysterious symbols on the walls continuing to glow faintly as they passed. The air felt thick now, like they were being watched, as though the ship itself was observing their every move. Richards couldn't shake the feeling that the ship was more than just an abandoned relic. It was something alive, sentient, and it had been waiting for them. Back aboard the Sovereign, the crew scrambled to process the information they had gathered. Zhao, who had been the first to interact with the ship's console, was already at his station, trying to decode the cryptic language that filled the ship's interior. But the symbols, even now, seemed to shift just beyond understanding. It was as if the ship's very design was an enigma, one that no one had the keys to unlock. "Commander," Zhao called out from his console, his voice filled with astonishment. "The ship's systems are starting to integrate with ours. It's like it's merging with our network." Richard stepped over to him, eyes narrowing in concern. "What does that mean, exactly?" Zhao hesitated, then turned to face her. "I'm not sure, but it's like the ship's AI is trying to communicate directly with ours. It's learning, adapting." As if on cue, The entire ship shook, just a brief tremor, but enough to send a ripple of alarm through the crew. The lights dimmed briefly, then returned to full brightness, but the low hum that had been resonating throughout the ghost ship was now unmistakable. It was louder, closer, almost as if it were coming from within them. "Commander, look at this," Lieutenant Emma Harris called out from another console. The display flickered, and a new set of data appeared. The ghost ship has activated its internal systems. It's launching something. A low thrumming sound filled the bridge as a massive holographic map of the surrounding sector appeared. The ghost ship's presence was now reflected across the map, its range, its reach, and the areas of space it had controlled in the past. Richard's eyes widened as she scanned the data. This is an entire fleet's worth of territory. It's not just one ship. This is the core of an ancient empire. Suddenly, the AI spoke again, its voice now clearer, more urgent. "I am ready. You are my chosen successors. The enemy approaches." The words hit Richards like a punch to the gut. Her heart skipped a beat as she instinctively scanned the sector map again. A massive fleet of alien warships was closing in on their location, an unmistakable sign of a hostile force, far more advanced than any human enemy they had encountered. "Alien ships," she muttered, her voice sharp. "They've been tracking us." As the crew scrambled to prepare for combat, Richards felt a cold sense of realization creeping over her. The ghost ship wasn't just a tool of war. It had been built to defend humanity against forces like these. The weight of that truth settled on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. "Activate the ship's combat systems," Richards ordered, her voice hardening. "We're about to see what this ghost ship can really do. We're not running from this fight. We're ready." The crew rushed to carry out her orders, their focus narrowing on the looming threat. The ghost ship was awake now, and it had one purpose: war. The moment the alien fleet was detected, the tension aboard the Sovereign became palpable. Richards stood at the helm, her hands clenched into fists at her sides as she stared at the holographic display. The map of the sector was now cluttered with bright red blips representing the incoming warships, dozens of them, closing in with terrifying speed. The ships, sleek and menacing, were unlike anything the humans had ever encountered. Their angular, insect-like design suggested a race that had evolved for one purpose: destruction. "Alien vessels are approximately 30 minutes out," Lieutenant Harris reported, her fingers flying across the console. "They're maintaining formation, no signs of deviation. Their weapons are fully powered. Looks like they're coming for us." Richard's jaw tightened. The ghost ship's AI had made it clear. The enemy was arriving, and they had no intention of negotiating. "Commander," Joe said, his voice low and filled with awe, "the ghost ship's systems are fully activated. It's preparing for battle. The weapon systems are online." Richards nodded. She had already seen what the ghost ship could do when its power was revealed in the hidden chamber. But that had been in a simulation. This was real. This was their first true test. There was no room for failure. "Status on our fleet?" Richards asked, her eyes scanning the data streams flashing across the main console. "We're outnumbered, but our ships are ready for combat," Commander Harris replied, her tone grim. "The ghost ship is the only advantage we have right now." "Then it's time we see what this ship can really do," Richards said, her voice filled with determination. "Prepare to engage." At her command, the Sovereign and the rest of the human fleet moved into formation, with the ghost ship at the center. The alien fleet was closing in fast. Every instinct in Richards screamed for her to retreat, but the ghost ship's AI had made it clear. Retreat was not an option. As they approached the alien ships, the air around the ghost ship seemed to shimmer. The massive vessel cloaked itself, its sleek black hull blending seamlessly into the background of space. It was no longer just a ship. It was a shadow, unseen and unstoppable. "Enemies have entered firing range," Harris reported, her eyes wide. "They're locking onto us." The battle began with a flash of energy. The alien ships unleashed a barrage of high-powered plasma bolts, aimed directly at the human fleet. But before any of the blasts could hit, the ghost ship moved. It wasn't a ship that responded to commands. It was an extension of their will. With a surge of power, the ghost ship activated its cloaking system, vanishing from view. Then, in a burst of speed, it reappeared just behind the lead alien ship. Before the aliens could react, the ghost ship unleashed its first salvo. A concentrated beam of energy shot from the ship's core, cutting through the alien vessel like a hot knife through butter. The ship's shields flared for a moment before collapsing entirely. The alien warship exploded in a violent burst of fire and debris. The human fleet gasped in awe. It was unlike anything they had ever witnessed. The ghost ship had destroyed an enemy ship in a single shot. Is that it? Lieutenant Zhao asked, his voice filled with disbelief. No, Richard said, her voice steady, but filled with the weight of what she had just seen. That's just the beginning. The alien fleet was now aware of the ghost ship's power. They scrambled to reposition, their ships moving into more defensive formations. But it was too late. The ghost ship's cloaking technology allowed it to strike from every angle, decimating enemy ships with precision and efficiency. Another alien ship attempted to fire a counterstrike, but it didn't even have the chance. The ghost ship's weapons lashed out, tearing through its hull, and within seconds, the ship was reduced to rubble. Richards watched as the battle unfolded. The Sovereign's crew was on edge, but they couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. The ghost ship was their weapon, their protector, and it was living up to every promise the AI had made. Humanity's first victory, Richards whispered to herself, a sense of awe filling her. We're not weak. We never were. With the last of the alien fleet vanquished, the battle was over. The ghost ship stood victorious, its purpose fulfilled, and Richards knew this was only the beginning. The aftermath of the battle was a sobering sight. The alien fleet had been utterly annihilated, their ships drifting in the cold void of space like discarded husks. The human fleet, though battered, had emerged unscathed. In the vast expanse of space, the Sovereign and its accompanying ships drifted, suspended in the eerie silence, the quiet after the storm. Richard stood on the bridge, staring at the holo display, the image of the destroyed alien fleet still hanging in the air before her. A sense of disbelief clung to her, despite the victory. It had all happened so fast. The ghost ship's firepower, its precision, its seemingly endless arsenal. She had expected power, but not this kind of raw devastation. We did it, Lieutenant Zhou said, his voice a mix of relief and awe. We actually did it. Richards didn't reply at first. She simply turned, her gaze fixed on the ship's tactical display. The ghost ship was still cloaked, its shape blending into the blackness of space. It was an eerie sight. No signs of damage, no trace of the battle that had just unfolded. It was as if the ship had come through unscathed, untouched by the violence it had unleashed. The ghost ship's AI spoke again, its voice calm but unmistakably authoritative. You have proven your worth. The war is not over. There are greater threats ahead. Richards glanced at the crew, her expression hardening. We've barely begun. We can't stop now. Before anyone could respond, the display flickered again. This time, it wasn't just alien ships on the radar. It was something far worse. The fleet's sensors began picking up massive energy readings, far beyond anything the humans had ever encountered. In an instant, Richards knew that the battle had only been a prelude to something much more dangerous. They're here, Zhou said, his voice filled with dread. The real enemy. The screen flickered again, and an image of a gargantuan warship filled the bridge's display. Its design was nothing like the sleek alien ships they had just destroyed. It was a vast, floating fortress, its surface black and jagged like some ancient predator's teeth. The ship's energy signature dwarfed everything they had seen before, a display of power that radiated from its core like the heat of a dying star. "This is no longer just a fight for survival," Richard said, her voice grim but unwavering. "This is our war, and we're not going to back down." As if in response to her words, the ghost ship suddenly surged forward, its engines flaring to life with terrifying intensity. The sheer force of its movement sent ripples through the Sovereign's hull. The ship had become more than just a vessel. It was a force of nature, a weapon that carried the weight of humanity's future in its very core. "Target the new fleet," Richards ordered, her gaze never leaving the massive warship that loomed on their sensors. "Prepare for combat." The crew immediately sprang into action, following Richards' commands with practiced precision. But even as they prepared, a sense of foreboding settled over them. The warship before them was more than just a new enemy. It was a symbol of what humanity was now up against. The ghost ship's power was impressive, but this new foe promised something even more terrifying. With a deep, resonant hum, the ghost ship deactivated its cloaking mechanism and appeared once more, its weapons fully primed. It was a beast on the hunt, and the humans were its pack. The vast, black fortress of the enemy warship loomed before them, but for the first time, it seemed vulnerable. "Let's show them the wrath of humanity," Richard said, her voice filled with determination. The ghost ship fired first, its weapons lighting up with a blinding flash that sent ripples through the fabric of space itself. This time, it was clear. There was no turning back. The massive warship loomed ahead, its immense size dwarfing everything in the human fleet's path. It was as though space itself bent around the monolithic structure, casting an oppressive shadow across the sector. The alien ship had no ornamentation or subtlety. It was a brutal construct, designed solely for destruction, a fortress with weapons as cruel as its design. Richard stood in front of the main view screen, her eyes narrowed. The moment the ghost ship fired its first salvo, the battle was joined. The energy beam from the ghost ship tore through the void, crashing against the enemy warship's shields with a resounding pulse. But to her surprise, the alien fortress didn't even stagger. The shields flickered for a moment, but they held firm. "They're strong," Gel muttered, his fingers dancing across his console. "Their shields are reinforced beyond anything we've seen before. We're going to need more than just brute force." Richard's eyes narrowed. "What are we dealing with here?" "Unknown, Commander," Lieutenant Harris said, her voice strained as she tracked the enemy's movements. "But that ship, it's more than just a war machine. It's a command vessel, like the center of their entire fleet. If we can't take it down, we'll be facing endless waves of reinforcements." "Then we take it down," Richard snapped, turning to face her crew. "We don't give them a chance to retaliate. All ships, prepare to engage. We need to break through their defenses." The ghost ship responded immediately, shifting its position to avoid the incoming fire from the enemy's cannons. Despite its immense power, the alien warship unleashed a barrage of plasma torpedoes in retaliation. They came fast and heavy, each one streaking toward the human fleet with terrifying precision. "Evasive maneuvers," Harris ordered, her hands flying across her console. "We're not out of this yet, people." The Sovereign and the other human ships scattered, their engines roaring as they dodged the incoming fire. The ghost ship, however, didn't flinch. It didn't need to. With its advanced cloaking technology, it vanished from sight once again, reappearing behind the alien warship in an instant. The weapons on the ghost ship fired again, a powerful beam that cut through the enemy ship's hull, creating a gaping wound along its midsection. For a moment, it seemed like they might win. But then, something changed. A sudden ripple of energy expanded from the enemy warship, and before Richards could react, the area around them was flooded with a new wave of ships. Alien vessels that had seemingly materialized from nowhere. Hundreds of them. Small, nimble fighters swarmed in from every direction, overwhelming the human fleet with their sheer numbers. "They're warping in ships from subspace," Zhao shouted. "We can't keep up with this." Richard's eyes flicked across the battlefield. The situation was rapidly spiraling out of control. The ghost ship had made its mark, but it wasn't enough to counter the sheer scale of the enemy's forces. The alien fleet was relentless, and now they had reinforcements coming from every angle. We need to hold them off, but we can't keep this up forever, Richards said, her voice fierce. Ghost ship, initiate secondary protocol. Defense mode. The ghost ship responded almost instantly, shifting its focus. Massive shields materialized around the ship, shimmering with a dark metallic sheen. Energy crackled along its hull as new weapons systems activated, launching devastating anti-fighter barrages that tore through the enemy fighters like paper. But the alien warships weren't just aiming for the Sovereign. They had locked onto the ghost ship as their primary target. Incoming fire. Lieutenant Harris shouted. We can't outrun them. The enemy warship's weapons discharged once again, sending a volley of beams toward the ghost ship. The first hit rocked the vessel, shaking the crew as they held onto their seats. But the ship endured. Another hit, and then another. The ghost ship's shields held for now, but the damage was beginning to show. Richards watched with a sense of dread creeping up her spine. They had underestimated the scale of this battle. The enemy was powerful, but they couldn't afford to lose now. Humanity's future depended on it. Prepare for close-quarters combat, Richards ordered, her voice unshaken despite the overwhelming odds. We're going to board that enemy warship. If we don't take out their command center, we'll never win this war. The tension on the Sovereign Bridge was thick. The battle raged outside, the black void of space illuminated by flashes of energy and the roar of weapons. The ghost ship was holding its ground, but it was clear they couldn't keep this up forever. The alien fleet was relentless, and even with the ghost ship's overwhelming power, they were starting to show signs of fatigue. We need to act now, Richards said, her voice cold with resolve. We can't just keep fighting off their ships. We have to end this at the source. Zhao looked up from his console, his face tense. If we're boarding that warship, we'll need a plan. The enemy will be expecting us, and that ship is a fortress. We're talking about heavily armored corridors, automated defenses, and possibly hundreds of their soldiers. I know the risks, Richards replied, meeting his gaze. But we have no choice. We have to get in there and destroy their command center. It's the only way to cripple them. Lieutenant Harris' fingers flew over her console, her eyes scanning the enemy fleet. We've already sent a distress signal to command. Reinforcements should be en route, but we can't count on them reaching us in time. We're on our own for now. Richards took a deep breath. She had no doubt about their capabilities, but the reality of what lay ahead was undeniable. The alien warship was too large, too fortified to simply overpower. They would need to be clever, to strike with precision and speed. Prepare the boarding teams, Richards ordered, her tone sharp. We'll be going in with everything we've got. The Sovereign moved into position, its engines pushing it closer to the massive enemy warship. The plan was simple: launch a direct assault on the command ship's bridge and disable their leadership. The ghost ship, still cloaked, would provide cover, picking off the smaller enemy ships while the humans executed their mission. Richard stood in the command center of the Sovereign, suited up in her combat gear, staring at the drop pod deployment bay. She could hear the hum of energy as the boarding pods were loaded, the sound like a countdown to the unknown. Every crew member aboard the Sovereign knew the gravity of what they were about to face. Pods are ready, Lieutenant Harris reported. It's time. Richards gave a sharp nod. Let's make it count. With that, the pods shot into the air, launching from the Sovereign with a deafening roar, speeding toward the enemy warship's hull. Inside, Richards and her team were locked in tight, the pressure of the launch forcing them down into their seats. She could feel her pulse pounding in her ears, but she forced herself to stay calm. They had trained for this. Now it was time to put it into action. The pods collided with the enemy warship's outer shell with a resounding crash. The hull of the alien ship shuddered, and the outer doors opened with a violent burst, releasing a wave of compressed air as they made their way inside. "Go, go, go," Richards shouted as she and her team poured out of the pods, weapons drawn and ready. They stormed down the dimly lit corridors of the enemy ship, taking down automated turrets with precise shots. The interior of the warship was dark, its jagged walls adorned with strange, foreign symbols that glowed faintly in the shadows. The crew was in hostile territory now, and the air was thick with the promise of danger. Every step brought them closer to the heart of the ship, and every corner could hide an enemy. "We're almost there," Richards said, her voice low but determined as she led the charge. "Stay focused." The group moved as one, cutting through enemy defenses as they went. Alien soldiers, humanoid but vastly different in appearance, emerged from hidden doors, their strange weapons crackling with energy. But the human soldiers were ready. They moved with ruthless precision, their training and the might of their ghost ship ally giving them the edge. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of close calls and firefights, they'd reached the heart of the warship, the command center. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing the heart of the alien fleet's power. And at the center of the command center stood the alien leader. Tall, angular, and radiating an air of supreme authority, it was clear this being was not like the others they had fought. This was their commander, the architect of the invasion. Richards didn't hesitate. Take them down. The fight for the future of humanity had reached its climax. The air in the command center crackled with tension. Richards and her team stood in the shadow of the alien leader, who loomed before them like a dark deity, its long, angular limbs seeming to stretch impossibly tall as its cold, calculating eyes surveyed the intruders. The alien skin shimmered with a metallic sheen, and its voice, when it spoke, was low and rumbling, like the sound of distant thunder. "You dare invade my ship," it said, its voice a chilling mix of disdain and command. "You are insignificant. Your species will fall before the might of the Dominion." Richard's eyes locked onto the alien, her heart pounding in her chest, but she refused to back down. The stakes were higher now than ever before. The survival of humanity and the fate of the galaxy rested on what happened in this room. "We don't fear you," she said coldly, raising her weapon and aiming it directly at the alien's chest. "Your empire is over." The alien's eyes flashed with a cold, calculating fury, and it raised its hand in an almost languid motion. Before anyone could react, the walls around them hummed to life, revealing hidden turrets, and the alien soldiers they had fought their way through earlier materialized again, more numerous and angrier than ever. It was clear that the alien commander had prepared for this moment. "We'll see how long your bravado lasts," the alien said with a sneer. The room erupted into chaos. Alien soldiers charged forward, weapons crackling with lethal energy. But Richards and her team were ready. They moved with the precision of trained soldiers, their rifles blasting deadly beams of energy at the oncoming forces. Every shot counted as they pushed forward, inch by inch. Despite the overwhelming odds, the ghost ship had not abandoned them. Outside the command center, its cloaking system remained active, and its weapons systems picked off any reinforcements trying to make their way toward the breach. The human fleet, though outnumbered, had the advantage of the ghost ship's immense firepower, supporting them with precise strikes that decimated the enemy's lesser forces. But the alien leader wasn't finished. With a wave of its hand, the entire room shifted, the floor beneath them buckling and creating barriers of alien energy that separated Richards from her team. "We are not just invaders," the alien leader hissed, its voice now laced with venom. "We are conquerors. You are nothing compared to what is coming." Richards gritted her teeth. She couldn't afford to let fear creep in. Not now. She could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her shoulders, but she had come too far to fail now. "Commander," Zhao called out from across the room, firing his weapon as he attempted to create an opening. "We need to disable the leader's control center now. It's the only way to stop them." Richards nodded, understanding at once. The alien leader was the linchpin. If they could take it down, the entire invasion force would crumble. But to do that, they would have to overcome not only the alien leader but its surrounding defenses too. "Cover me," Richards shouted, motioning for her team to hold the line. With a swift motion, she dove toward the alien command console at the far side of the room. Every step felt like an eternity as she moved toward the heart of the enemy's operation, the alien leader's eyes tracking her every move. As she reached the console, a surge of energy shot from the walls, crackling across the room. Richards gritted her teeth and slammed her fist onto the control panel, activating a fail-safe that her team had discovered in the intelligence they'd gathered. The room shuddered with a violent tremor, and the lights flickered as the console's systems began to power down. "No!" the alien leader howled, its voice laced with desperation. At that moment, the ghost ship outside responded in kind, firing its most powerful weapons directly into the heart of the alien flagship. The blast was overwhelming, shaking the entire warship to its core. The alien leader let out a final guttural scream before its form crumpled, its body collapsing into nothingness. With its death, the shields around the command center flickered and died, and the remaining alien forces began to falter, their coordination lost without their commander. Richards didn't hesitate. "Finish them." The human soldiers advanced, pushing through the disorganized alien forces with lethal precision. The battle for the alien flagship had been won, but it was only the beginning of the war for humanity's future. As the command center fell silent, Richards stood victorious, breathing heavily as the weight of the victory began to sink in. The ghost ship had delivered on its promises, and humanity had just taken its first step toward reclaiming the galaxy. But Richards knew this was just the beginning. The Dominion was vast, and the true war had only just begun.